Welcome to 20 Metre Restart Agree to Disagree Rugby League podcast. I'm your host Ra, and on today's show, we talk about which team impressed the boys the most. Referees, are they blowing too much penalties? Manly, salary cap breach. Two unbeaten teams left in the NRL, Dragons and Warriors. The women's NRL Premiership competition, our picks, and much more. Hoons, Nick, let's get it on. Welcome to another 20 Metre Restart Agree to Disagree Rugby League podcast. I'm your host Ra, alongside Nick and Hoons. Good morning, boys.
Good morning.
Morning.
All right, just before we start, the scoreline for last week's game for round 3, Storm versus Cowboys. Storm defeated the Cowboys 30-14. Bulldogs versus Panthers. Bulldogs won 2018. Tigers versus Broncos. Broncos defeated the Tigers 9-7. Raiders versus Warriors. Warriors defeated the Raiders in an epic comeback, 20-19. Rabbitohs defeated the Seagulls 34-6. Eels lost to the Sharks 14-4. Titans absolutely demolished by the Dragons 54-8. And the Roosters smashed the Knights 38-8. That's round 3 teams. Hoons, which team impressed you the most, buddy?
I gotta say this, Sarah. The Warriors actually impressed me the most this week. I haven't picked the Warriors lately, but the way that Warriors have played over the last 3 weeks has been really eye-opening. The Warriors look like that they're a team that never gives up, with only about less than 5 minutes left in the game, 7 points down. Isaac Luke slices through to score an easy try. It was such a soft try. Johnson getting those 2 field goals, but it was the forwards rolling up the field too easily. I thought the Raiders looked terrible in the last 10 minutes of that game, especially that last 5 minutes. But the Warriors, so impressive, man. So impressive. I'm happy to see them up there. I'm happy that they won 3 in a row for the first time in their history. And I love everything that they're doing with... you can tell that they're way more fitter than usual. They've come into the season really prepared to take it to the next level. And I can't wait to see them play the Roosters.
How about you, Nick? Which team impressed you the most?
I would say the Roosters impressed me the most. I think in the first 2 rounds they were still, they won, they just lost to the Tigers and then they beat the Bulldogs, and I think they were still sort of finding their form there. They weren't in full gear, but I thought, Cronk and Keary really lifted their game. You could really see they started to gel. They both started to complement each other, and the Roosters just started playing really strong footy, and I see them as a bit of a team to beat after that performance, because they were just phenomenal.
Yeah, and do you guys agree with Hoons and Nick? That's the team that impressed them the most. All right, boys, we've got to get into this. There's been a lot of penalties, and some people are upset, especially fans and that, about the amount of penalties that are being called. Sometimes it's controversial in that, but so what is your thoughts or your take on refs calling the penalties? Like, should they keep calling it, or just calm down a wee bit? What are your thoughts on that, Nick?
Look, penalties are penalties, and I think the most important thing is that they just stay consistent. So I think they can be really strict on penalties or really lenient on penalties. Just as long as they're consistent, it wouldn't really bother me. Because I understand what they're trying to do. I understand they're trying to clean up the game, but then on the weekend, you still see, 50-50 calls that aren't penalties. And you just think, well, where's your stance then? So as long as they're consistent, I don't mind what they do, but they do need to improve that.
I agree with you, Nick. I think that with all the amount of penalties, I just want to see consistency as well. It's just, there was a lot of 50-50 calls, and for some teams, it did cost them the game. And also is that I'm not enjoying a lot of penalties due to the fact that we're turning into a union, rugby union. So many penalties, and I think the refs really need to tidy up what are the rules and what's not the rules in the game of rugby league, so we can get it right and have a fast flowing game. That's what everyone wants to see, and as a fan, I definitely want to see that too, man.
Yeah, for sure, boys. Just moving on quickly to the Manly salary cap breach. They finally got their punishment handed down by the NRL head. But no competition points has been taken away from them as well. But should the NRL and rugby league itself go hard on people that breach the salary cap? Hoons?
I think it's unfair if they don't, because all the teams that have been caught for salary cap scandals or salary cap breaches have all lost points. Bulldogs, for instance, back in, I think it was 2002, where they were just on top and they got caught for salary cap breaches, and they lost all their points. They were at the top of the bloody table too. And then you have the Storm in 2010. They lost all points and couldn't gain any more points. The Eels are the recent team as well, and they lost all their points for one of the seasons, the recent seasons that just came through. And the Seagulls should be, no doubt, the same. Just lose their. They only got 2 points on the board, so, but maybe 2 of those games that they don't get points. I think that the NRL should go down on them. And I think I know it's not the players, and it's a poor showing from the Manly's board, but hey, the rules are the rules, and they're there for a reason.
I agree. I think they should definitely be some sort of. It surprised me there was no punishment for the players, because I know they're just signing contracts, and it wouldn't really. You'd think it wouldn't bother them, but they're aware of how much money they're making, and when they're making more money than what their contract says, surely they'd have some idea that that's not okay. That's breaching their salaries. But I definitely think there should be a punishment for the players as opposed to just the club and the board of the club.
Oh, boys, we'll just keep moving on to some good news this time about rugby league footy itself. We have 2 unbeaten teams for this season, and it's fascinating that these 2 teams are on top at the moment, unbeaten, with 3 wins, no losses. The Dragons and the Warriors. Boys, thoughts on these 2 teams? How far can they go? Nick?
Warriors, I'm not too sure. I wouldn't be confident saying they'll continue this sort of form, particularly because they only won against Raiders, a bottom tier sort of team, in the last 5 minutes because the Raiders got lazy and slack. So I don't see them as a real threat. I know they're 3 from 3, but who have their games been against? It's Rabbitohs, Titans, and Raiders. 3 pretty weak sides if you realistically.
And they were in the bottom 8 last year.
Exactly. So I mean, harder to judge that, but I think the Dragons, they look strong. They beat the Broncos by 20 points, Titans by 46 points in the end. And I think they look threatening. Their whole forward pack looks threatening. Their whole back line looks threatening. Widdop's kicking game is back to top form. Hunt's looking confident on the ball. Matt Duffy's rapid. He is so quick. And he's just such a threat to the defensive line. I think the Dragons are definitely a team to beat right now. I would say they're going to carry on.
And just to add to that, round 2, they did defeat the Sharks at Shark Park, 20-16. So just to prove more of your point. Hoons?
Yeah, so I'm kind of up in the air with the Warriors, just due to the fact that it's like what Nick said. Man, like they've played the Rabbits, which I think the Rabbitohs could actually play better, considering of the amount of quality players they have. But Titans and then Raiders, I had an inkling that they were going to beat the Raiders. I felt like Raiders they completely lose their way at the back end of games, as has just been proven. And the Dragons, well, playing the Broncos, decimating the Broncos. And, that's actually funny because in round 1, I called it. I said the Dragons were going to beat the Broncos and not only beat them, but beat them well. And now, like, Nick is all, like, part of it now. He's like, yeah, man, the Dragons are the team to beat. They look so good. And I'm happy that you actually, agree with me for that part. Yeah, it's a nice feeling to hear that. And then to beat the Sharks at Shark Park is a different one too, where Sharks are pretty hard to beat at Shark Park. And then decimating the Titans is ridiculous. So, overall, I think Dragons are the team to beat. But I'm interested to see where the Warriors are at this week, because this will be their first Stern test, and that's against the Roosters. And then straight after, I'm pretty sure they've got the Cowboys. And then the Broncos after that, and then the Storm. So they've got 4 matches in a row. Well, it's either one of those, Storm or Dragons. I know they're going to play the Dragons as well, which is going to be an interesting one. But I just hope that, like Nick, the Warriors keep a great level of consistency, and I want them to do well, because lo behold, or by golly, that New Zealand Rugby League really needs something done over there in New Zealand so the game can grow.
Yeah, and boys, just to add on to that, just the mere fact that Hunt and Widdop, they found that combination so quickly during the start of the season, it's just fascinating to me as well. While moving on, our women's NRL Premiership competition will be starting this season. We have 4 teams. I think it will be starting this season, but I'm positive. But anyway, we have 4 teams at this stage. Broncos, Dragons, Roosters, and the Warriors. Nick, how good is it to see Women's Rugby League finally in the big stage?
It's good. It's good to see, just like AFL, they've grown the women's game as well. And I think that definitely it appeals to a different demographic, doesn't it? As opposed to just having the men watching, they prefer those big hits. They prefer that straight up impact power. Whereas now you're appealing to a different demographic. I think the women would be much more skillful in their game as opposed to brutal strength. So yeah, I think it could be a really interesting aspect of the game to watch.
Yeah, well, for me, I can't wait. I can't wait to see that. I'm actually glad that women's rugby league is coming to the forefront. And they need it. They need it to grow our sport, and especially with the women or young girls following through and making a career in rugby league. We see that Nick was saying about that they will probably be more skillful. Actually, I must give credit to the Jillaroos and the Kiwi Ferns, because they set the standard about women's rugby league, and the rivalry between them has been fantastic, and they've had monstrous hits, big, powerful running games. It's been beautiful to watch. I must say that even watching the women's play, Jillaroos and Kiwi Ferns, I find that more fascinating than sometimes the men's play, because of all the things that's happening out on the field, where the women's are playing for not only for their country. They're playing for the pride of women's rugby league, and they've done such a great job, and I'm so glad. I'm a big fan of it. Yeah, let's do it.
And add to that, boys, other teams will eventually start coming into the competition, so it's really good to see that NRL is finally stepping in. Todd Greenberg is happy with it, so hopefully it just keeps flourishing all throughout. All right, time for our picks. Last week we didn't do too well, but we did all right. On Thursday, 29th of March at 1300 Smile Stadium, Cowboys versus Panthers. Who will win this one, Hoons?
Cowboys at home. Easy pick for me. There's no way that we should lose at home against a Panthers team without Nathan Cleary. Nathan Cleary is such an awesome young gun, but on the other hand, the Cowboys have a point to prove. They've lost 2 matches in a row already. And like I said on last week's podcast, we're a sleeping giant. The Cowboys are a sleeping giant. If they get all the pieces right and get game plan is best suited for them and their structure, and plus they need to fix up their defence as well, knowing that the Panthers can do a bloody comeback. But overall, we should beat them. And it should be easy too. And that's just my thoughts on it. So Cowboys for the win, bruh.
Friday, 30th of March, Rabbitohs versus Bulldogs. I will go Rabbitohs. I believe the Rabbitohs will win this after their high against the Manly Seagulls. And plus, let's not forget, they still have a champion in Greg Inglis. And he's only waiting to explode. So, for me, Rabbitohs. The game after it, on Good Friday, Sharks versus Storm. Nick, who will win it?
Definitely the Storm. I mean, I know it is at Shark Park on a Friday night, but I don't see the Storm losing that game. I think the team that beat the Storm in 2016 Grand Final was a different Shark side. So I don't see them overpowering the Storm anytime soon. I haven't seen Fafita play too well yet, and he really is their attacking weapon in the forward pack. Or not even, just he is their weapon in the forward pack. You know, he'll make massive hits and massive hit-ups, but he hasn't found that form yet. So, considering they've lost their biggest weapon in the forward pack, he's just not playing well, I'm going to have to go the Storm.
Storm for Nick. Saturday, 31st of March, the first game up on Super Saturday. Roosters versus Warriors. Hoons, who will win at Allianz Stadium.
Tough one. But like I said previously on our podcast, the Warriors have a point to prove. Now they're playing a top tier side that we all believe that is in the top 4. And I'm going to go for the Warriors. The Warriors is my team. And I think that they can do it. I believe that the confidence that they've shown over this last 3 weeks, if they can put the pieces together with Blake Green becoming a great foil for Sean Johnson and even Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, Isaac Luke is on fire. He's brought back his running game, which made him one of the best, if not the second best player or second best hooker in the world at one point. The forwards are doing their jobs. They're rolling down the field, and they have a classy, brilliant centre in Peter Hiku on one side, on the right side where they've been attacking the most, and they have world-class second rower in Tohu Harris. So there's a lot to prove now. There's a point to prove for the Warriors, and the Warriors are my pick.
Can the Warriors do it and prove everyone wrong? The next game is Seagulls versus Raiders. I am going for the Raiders in this. Surely they will win. They will win this one. They've got a lot to prove. After Manly's punishment getting handed down at the moment, and just wondering if that would play on the mind of the Seagulls. I know they're playing at the old Brookvale Oval. And actually, I'm changing that pick, guys. I'm changing that pick. Manly at Brookvale. I didn't realize it was at Brookvale until I just read my entire paper. So Brookvale, Manly. I think that would be too strong for the Raiders. Too strong for the Raiders. Sorry, boys. Sorry, Seagulls to win. The next game, Dragons versus Knights at Wynn Stadium. Sunday, 1st of April. Hoons, who do you got?
I'm going for the Dragons. There's no way I'm going for the Knights. I thought the Knights showed that against top-tier teams or quality sides that they fold under pressure. I believe that the Dragons has the potential to be in the top 4 for a long time. And, Dragons have just looked fantastic. I don't really have to talk about the Dragons because their performances on the field has shown everybody what they're capable of. And I just love the way that Woodop and Hunt has linked up. And this is their first season, first three NRL games so far together. And they just look phenomenal. Nick's already mentioned about the Dragons. I've got to add Nightingale in there. The experience head. Love that guy so much. He is phenomenal. He's so safe. And anyone that you need to rely on, Jason Nightingale's one as well. But Dragons, easily.
And the next game at Suncorp Stadium on Sunday, Broncos versus Titans. Nick, who do you got?
Definitely the Broncos. After such a I want to say a tough win. I know it's a controversial thing to say there. Obviously, They only won on a penalty goal, but still, it was a very well fought game. I thought Broncos and Tigers both played extremely well. And I know teams will usually bounce back after being hammered like that, but I don't see the Titans with the strength to do that, especially against Broncos at home, Sunday night. It's not going to happen. So my tip's definitely for the Broncos.
No surprises there, guys. No surprises there.
Yeah, hold up, bro. I just want to say, Nick. So I just want to get your thoughts on the controversial call with the West Tigers and the Broncos, because as we all watched that game, I was actually dumbfounded with the penalty that was given away and gave the Broncos the win. What's your thoughts on it, man?
I think it was definitely it was a strict call. It was very if you look at the basic rules of the game, yes, he's not square as marker. But if you look at the last 87 minutes of the game played, that wouldn't have been called before that. It wasn't called before that. I think they might have been penalised once or twice, either side, for not being square. But that was it. And there were so many other 50-50 calls that they didn't get. So once again, that's where consistency comes into play. So yes, it was a penalty, but in the context of the game, it shouldn't have been given.
Exactly. And to go back to your point about it too, is like, I'm glad that you came out and as a Broncos supporter, you actually said something like that, because I was watching a show last night and Bill Harrigan was on, and everyone that knows who Bill Harrigan is a well respected referee. And even he said that it was...
I think Gordon Tallis would disagree with that.
Yeah, thanks, Ra. It was a disappointing... He said that it was a disappointing call and it shouldn't have been called. Knowing Bill Harrigan and the way that he felt where the game was going, how can you go against a guy like that? He's Bill said it straight away, and they asked him what would you do with Ashley Klein if he was still here to the boss of referees, and he said that he would send him back to club level grassroots footy and go referee over there, because he said that all the grassroots people will love it to see a NRL referee there. And it's just, it was amazing. I felt sorry for the Tigers first and foremost, and I just thought a 1 point each was sufficient enough.
And speaking on that, West Tigers versus Eels. Eels is not doing really great. Disappointing. Nick, who will win this one?
Definitely the Tigers. After having such an upsetting loss like that, that'd hurt. That would crush you. But I feel as if it's Monday night as well, I believe. So my issue was if it was going to be on a Friday night or Thursday night, Tigers would be tired. They defended so hard and they were just exhausted, hands on knees.
For the last 3 weeks, man.
Exactly. And so I think that fatigue was eventually going to set in. But I think since that's going to be a week and a half since their last game, they'll definitely be back in full form. Eels are just in a dismal place. I don't see them picking themselves out of it anytime soon, especially with Jared Hayne out. So my tip's definitely the Tigers there.
Well, guys, that's our picks, our 8 picks for each round. And unfortunately, time is up. Thank you very much for listening in to 20 Meter Restart Agree to Disagree. I'm Ra with Nick and Hoons signing off. Later.